Lee, I'm hearing a lot of clicking, but not you.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Now I can. So while we're going to get started in a couple minutes, but if you have questions for Lee, if you want to just put them into the Mumble chat. I also have the ones that are on the forum for those that post there. All right, we'll get started. If you have questions, you can keep posting them. If you could keep yourself muted while we're going through the chat, that'd be great. For those that haven't been here, this is a PFU Keepside chat. If you're looking for recordings of the previous chats, it's at youtube.pathfinderuniversity.com. And you can get all the information on Pathfinder University at pathfinderuniversity.com. It's a company for new players in their first 90 days. So Lee, for those people that haven't met you, could you introduce yourself, kind of what you do, and why you're here?
Sure. My name is Lee Hammock. I am the lead game designer on Pathfinder Online, and it's my job to try and make the game fun.
Try and make the game fun. I love that. So a lot of questions today about settlements and holdings and all that fun stuff. You ready for those?
Ready.
All right. So let's start with some kind of questions on population. I know you put out some kind of key bulk resources for settlement level. I heard there's kind of some retooling thinkings about population and changes. Anything along those lines?
I wouldn't. Well, okay. I don't think there's necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily call it retooling. I mean, there's a lot of the math that we're like today. I spent most of today working on spreadsheets for the development index versus bulk resource cost of settlements, and this is all stuff we had roughed out very roughly previously. But it's going to become a reality in a few weeks. Small number of months, that range. So I've been working on trying to get a little more concrete numbers. So it's not. I would call some of the work we're doing not retooling, but preparing for what we have. I mean, I've done a lot of like the numbers I was running today on my spreadsheet was making sure that a settlement of 25 people can get a class to 20th level training. With 25 people. I mean, it's not a lot else going on necessarily in the settlement, but with 25 people, if you want to be like, hey, we're a fighter settlement, and we're 25 people, you can be an awesome fighter settlement. You won't be a very good wizard settlement, but you'd be an awesome fighter settlement. So basically, the thing that bigger settlements get is not necessarily their higher level; it's that they have a more variety of things. So I mean, we're designing everything at this point towards basically the population that we have, but this all uses numbers that we can scale up as needed. I mean, kind of like with the resource system, I've been building in like a counter effectively. You can say, okay, well, the population has doubled, we need more resources in the game and stuff like that. So yeah, it's all built to basically scale up, and that's one of the things about like the holding math. Like once we get the worker system in, is all based on how many people you throw at the problem. So that system, to some extent, already scales up based on population, because if you throw more workers into your holdings, you get more stuff out. So yeah, I mean, I would say we're planning towards the population we have. I don't think there's necessarily been that much retooling, but it's maybe different math than we had originally planned on. But a lot of it's math that exists for system like. Right now, any math that we did 2 years ago is already pretty much obsolete. So I mean, we're already redoing so much stuff. It's not really that different from anything else.
Yeah, and I just couldn't make up a word like remathing or something like that. So that's why I picked retooling.
I use that word all the time. Math is a verb here. So like when I've asked people to work on something, like, can you go math that for a while? So yeah, math is totally a verb here.
All right, so you've been mathing. Great. So when you talk about mathing and development index, talk a little about kind of what that is, because we haven't heard so much in the blogs about that, and we'll come back to what's actually published. And I think the other question you kind of brought up was, hey, you could just be a fighter settlement or other things. Talk just a little bit about those if you can.
So development indexes are what influences to companies. Development indexes are for settlements. They are a pool of points that you use to basically build your structures. There are right now we've got a plan that there are 3 development indexes for a settlement. security, civilization, and morale. These generally go from 1 to 1,000 each. We don't know if we're not sure right now if it's going to be a hard cap or just a really, a soft cap that's really hard to get over that point. But one of the two would be about 1 to 1,000 for each of those. You get a little bit of every development index for every hex you have a holding in. So if you just take more territory, your development index is 1. The other way you get a development index is there are buildings you can build in your settlement that give you development indexes. For example, if you build a guard outpost, your security development index goes up. If you build a heroic statue, your morale, goes up. Those buildings take up the same slots as your fighter trainer or your crafting facility, or the things you want to, the slots you want to use for other stuff. So there's something of a trade-off between, okay, taking territory is hard, but it doesn't take up our building slots. And these buildings that do take up these slots do have a resource cost to them. So there's basically a trade-off between, okay, we need to get our development indexes up. We can try and take territory, which does get us more resources, or we can try and build these things that doesn't require us to take territory, but does require resources. So there's a number of different trade-offs you can do. I think, a lot of settlements on the smaller end will end up building more structures. They'll rely more on building structures than taking territory. But settlements have to figure out sort of like their own balance for how they want to do that. Development indexes basically are a pool-like influence. You don't spend it; you invest it in buildings. So, for example, if you have 600 security, you could have a 300 security building and a 200 security building and a 100 security building. You still have a total of 600 security, but it's basically invested in those buildings. Let's see, that's the core of the development index stuff. I mean, we are look at when we get into settlements, we are going to change things around a bit, where companies and settlements are going to have a little bit of a different interaction in that right now we've effectively got the founding company of a settlement is treated kind of like every other company, except it's the one in charge, except its leader is the one in charge. So we're going to be changing that structure around somewhat. So we're going to create a concept of a charter company. And that is going to be the company that owns the settlements, and other companies basically a charter company is effectively a company of companies. It can exist separate from a settlement, a charter company that isn't necessarily attached to a settlement, but other companies would swear to the charter company, and the membership of the charter company is just the leaders of the companies that are sworn to it. So basically it's sort of like the upper echelons of the settlement, and then that charter company actually has development indexes. So there's going to be a little bit of reorganization on that front, so it's not quite so much the kind of weird case we have now where one company is mechanically almost the same. The leader company is almost mechanically the same as the others, except it has these little things. We want to have a mechanically distinct company that all the leaders of the other companies are put into automatically, but are also, you have the various sworn companies below it. Did that make sense?
That did. Now let me ask a question, because we were having some debate on this one. So if I spend my money and I do all fighter training, and I don't have a wizard trainer, does that mean that like my players can't use wizard skills, or does that cut them back? How's that work?
So we're actually having a lot of discussions about right now. So when settlements come online, it will be we will have the system on such that you'll only be able to learn things from NPC settlements, your settlement, and your allied settlements. So if you have a fighter settlement and you don't have, people could train up to 8th level wizard stuff. Pretty much at the NPC settlements. To get beyond that, you'd have to build an alliance with a town that offers wizard training. And if you have a high level wizard settlement and a high level fighter settlement next door to each other, hey, work out a deal, everybody's good. Now the concept of support that we used previously, the idea that you only retain a skill if your settlement supports that skill, that's getting a lot of discussion right now. And unfortunately, I can't really say for sure where that's going to end up. We've discussed a lot of different ideas until they get, I can throw out some of the basics and the ideas we talked about, but I don't want anybody to be like, oh my God, they promised this thing. But we talked about changing it. So one of the options was basically effectively getting rid of support but giving you basing your dedication bonus, i.e. the bonus I get if I'm slotted according to one class, on the buildings in your settlement. So if you go learn wizard skills somewhere else, you're fine using them. It's just your settlement has these awesome bonuses for slotting fighter skills, so you'll be a better fighter. And we're talking about that bonus at like a 5 to 10% bonus. So it's not like an I win bonus, but it's a, hey, you know, it helps out bonus. We've talked about it. So we've talked about doing a system when we get the faction system in that maybe you can get support from your NPC faction. So if you become a Hell Knight and you're flagged for PvP for the Hell Knight faction, you can get support for your skills from them. So we're trying to move away from the barrier between people playing with their friends and taking skills away from characters as harshly as we had planned. We still want to have a penalty for. We want the core. We want the thing we really want to make sure everybody has to have a home address. It's kind of how we've been talking about it internally. We want everyone to be part of a company, part of a settlement, part of an NPC faction. We want everyone to be part of something that if they act badly, consequences can be leveled against them. If you're part of a company and you're a jerk, other people can feud your company and you will, suffer for it in some level. Your company may have holdings that will suffer even if you're offline. So, there's a real social impetus to not be a jerk because, hey, my friends may suffer if I'm a jerk, if I'm part of a company. If you're part of a settlement, same sort of thing. We want you to be, and if you're part of an NPC faction, if we do support through NPC factions, which I'm not saying we will, but if we did, it would be tied to being flagged for PvP for that faction. So if you're, getting your support from the Hell Knights, you have to be flagged as a Hell Knight and PvPable to people of other factions. So we want everyone, we want to make sure everyone has effectively a home address or something they call home, some place that opens them to PvP, opens them to repercussions, and means they can't just shrug off their misdeeds. It's like, oh, I'm just going to log off and ignore it. Well, if you log off, if you're a jerk and you log off for a week and you come back and your company's had all their stuff burned down because someone declared a feud because you were a jerk, well, that's kind of the social glue we want to get out of the system.
That's a great perspective. I don't know, I heard it that way. So what I'm hearing, if I get this right and just reading between the lines, the new mathing and some of the structures are making some of the smaller settlements a bit more viable.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something we're like I said, I'm designing towards an eye towards like a 25-person settlement can be a competitive settlement. I mean, they're not going to, like I said, they're going to lack variety. But if they choose to focus on something, they can be pretty awesome at that thing. It's just they're not going to be like, hey, we train 4 classes or whatever up to max level. You're like, we train 1 and some support structures and stuff like that. And I will say that 25-person structure, 25-person company is going to have to invest more of their XP in making their holding. Like they're going to basically their workers are going to have to spend more of their XP on the worker skills than a larger company would to get the same results. So I mean, it is the sort of thing like if you want to have a smaller company, you can totally do it. You're going to have to specialize, and you have to fight and harvest smart. You can have the smaller companies, but it's just going to be you're going to have to do it smart and make sure everybody stays on task effectively.
Well, that's great. But that really sounds like a shift because I mean, I remember hearing numbers about you need 1,200 people to run a settlement or something along those lines.
Those were a long time ago numbers. I mean, honestly, when I started the project, the number for a settlement was like bounded. Was thrown around as like 1,000 people, and I was always like, that's a lot of people. And so one of the things we've been working on, so we got it down to 500. The way that I've looked at it is my ideal settlement size is actually not ideal, but the settlement size I think we're actually going to end up seeing as more the top end is more the 200 to 300 range. Because made up of companies of approximately 30 to 50 people, because 30 to 50 people is about how many people you can interact with. There's actually a bunch of research on this, where you actually feel like you're part of a social group that listens to you. Once you get bigger than that range, you become a faceless, nobody, and people don't listen to you. That's why we wanted to have. That's one of the reasons we wanted to have the companies that are sworn to settlements as opposed to just a settlement. Because in a group of 200 to 300 people, you're a name, you're a nobody. But in a group of 30 to 50, which then reports or is a part of a bigger settlement, you're going to be more than a name, at least in your smaller social group. So always wanted to create sort of like that different levels of social groups, and always make sure there's one where it is small enough where you're not just going to be a name that people don't pay attention to. There's going to be one where people know you. So yeah, I mean, I obviously I like to have more settlements, bigger settlements, stuff like that. But yeah, it is the numbers we started with. Were just big, and also honestly, I think we need to. I think initial estimations overestimated how many people would join settlements. I think we've got more people that aren't part of settlements than we expected. So, that's another thing to us to look at is, how to encourage people to join settlements, because obviously a lot of the game is joining settlements. But at the same time, for people who, don't want to, who for whatever reason don't like joining settlements, finding ways to involve them in the game, but allow them some freedom. Like we've been talking a lot about the NPC faction system stuff lately, where if a person really doesn't want to be part of the settlement system, they could go join the Hell Knights or whoever, and they can they'll open themselves to PvP from a large segment of the population. But maybe they get a little more wiggle room to be free from settlements if they choose to do that. So I mean, we're looking at a number of options right now, but yeah, the settlement numbers were high.
That's great to hear. I mean, it's just kind of, it sounds like, we've been having a lot of these discussions in these chats about different settlements and sizes. It really sounds like a lot of this stuff you're coming up with, I don't know if I want to say crowdforged, but at least came from some of the discussions on the boards and things. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, actually, a lot of it from Lisa, because I think she talks to y'all more than anybody else here does. I mean, I play the game a decent amount. I mean, we've got our company, the Bloodstone Swords, and I know Bob's in all the time. But she gives us a lot of information about what folks are talking about, stuff like that. But we all I read the forums, multiple times every day. Sounds a weird way to say it, but I read the forums every day. Steven reads the forums every day. Bob reads the forums every day. So I realize we don't necessarily post on everything. There's a lot at this point. Trying to get through all of the forums is a lot. So we don't necessarily have as much time to spend as we would like. But yeah, we do spend a lot of time looking through forums and trying to gauge what people are looking for and how big various groups are and what people are expecting. But yeah, it's something we spend a lot of time on, trying to gauge that level of interest.
Great. And while we're talking about numbers, a lot of people are worried about Big May dropped, and did half the population disappear over May 1st? Can you give us any insight?
Oh, half the population did not leave. I mean, there was a drop, but I know Ryan doesn't like giving the numbers, so I don't want to get in trouble with Ryan for giving out numbers. But yeah, I mean, there was a drop, but it wasn't. It was like I don't know, 15%. So I mean, it's not like half the people left. So obviously, we'd like to have more people. And one of the things I just came here from a meeting about revamping the new player experience and trying to make things a little more engaging from the get-go. So I mean, we are trying to refocus a little bit on new player retention. We're actually doing some stuff working with the Pathfinder Society to try and route some stuff through them. So we are definitely putting effort towards getting people who try the game to stick a little better and trying to get more people to try the game. But yeah, we're going to work on making the tutorial longer in a good way. We're getting some more tech on some more quest types, getting waypoints on the map kind of stuff, getting better UI on how keywords work. Those are all things we've talked about doing in the near future. So it's just easier for people to digest.
Great. Well, a 15% drop is not necessarily, I think, what people were picturing. So at least that seems to be relatively healthy, and nobody lost their mind over the past couple of days, huh?
No, I mean I get a daily report on what numbers or what subscribers and all that kind of stuff, and you know, it's weirdly emotional to get that every day. I'm one of those people who, when I'm on a diet, I weigh myself every day, and every day I slide back. I'm like, damn it, can't believe I gained a pound back. So yeah, looking at numbers on a daily basis like this, they stress me out just because every little fluctuation I take personally. But yeah, that's just not a healthy thing to do. So I try not to put too much stock in it.
No, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. I don't know any of us want you to take it personally. It's just a matter of a little health check doesn't hurt us to figure out kind of what's going on. And well, I'm not going to keep push you all for numbers in particular. I'm just trying to take a temperature. So, all right. So, talk to me a little bit more about where you come up with this math for the bulk resources, the holdings, all that, and when are the towers disappearing? Kind of, what's the transition looking like?
So that's actually okay. So at 9 a.m. this morning, I would have had a definite answer for you on that. We're actually looking at possibly changing around the schedule. We have to figure out some stuff first to move up some of the new player stuff I was talking about and pushing back some of the end game on some of the last features on the tower. So E8 is going to include feuds, upgrading towers, upgrading holdings and outposts, upkeep on holdings, and UI for doing all of that. So the things that remain, the major features are capturing holdings, stealing from holdings, and the manager worker system. So we had planned on that being done for EE9 for the most part. We're basically trying to figure out now, do we want to refocus on trying to get some new player stuff done, or do we want to hold off on the last of the tower stuff or last of the holding stuff? The towers will not come out until also the other system that we don't have in is settlement level based on resources. So the towers don't come out until that system goes in. So unfortunately, like I said, I could probably answer that question for you tomorrow, but I literally left the middle of a meeting to come do this. So unfortunately, I do not have that answer for you right now.
So you're kind of E9 or E10 is what you're saying?
Yeah, one of the two.
All right. So we had added a special.
I should add as an addendum, the settlement resource system will not come online, like settlement-based, resource-based settlement level will not come online until we have something to allow you to transport goods at a easier than you can right now. Because it is, expecting people to move large numbers of bulk resources across the game with the means they have right now is not fun. So yeah, that system is not going to go online until we have other tech. We have a number of things we've talked about. We have some work done on some of them that are really cool, but I don't know which one we're going to actually end up with first. So there will be something to help people move large amounts of resources by the time that system comes on.
You're trying to say my pet mule is not coming in EE8?
Your pet mule is not coming in EE8, but your pet mule's around here somewhere.
That's fair. So there had been discussion a while back when they retooled the towers of adjusting the tower level. So if you have 6 towers, you'd be at kind of close to the top. And, is there any thought about that? Because right now it's about 11 and people are going to start getting a little crazy.
Actually, there hasn't been a lot of discussion in the office about that.
That was a Ryan promise, kind of back when we had the math problems.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right, about raising everything other. I would not be opposed to that. I'd want to double check the math, but yeah, I'd have to look at how the tower spreadsheet is set up right now. But yeah, I would not be particularly opposed to that. So I mean that might be, yeah, I would say it's a distinct possibility. I'd want to look at check some of the math spreadsheets. But no, that's should be doable. yeah, I have to think about it for a little bit, but yeah, it should be feasible.
Yeah, I think the discussion was if the towers are going away, in 3 weeks, that's one thing. But if they're going away in 6 to 9, which is what we were talking about, then raising the base level of the PC might be a good question.
Yeah, that's kind of like where I with the put. I think one of the reasons I hadn't really spent much time on it is because just because we had planned on doing the settlement upkeep stuff in E9, and it seemed like it'd be right around the corner. But yeah, if we're pushing off for a little bit, yeah, it does. It certainly makes more sense to tweak the tower levels. As you can see, as I said, I just came from that meeting, so the full ramifications of possible changes have not been discussed yet. So yeah, that is indeed a ramification of the change.
And the other one having to do with levels, kind of people are people are starting to get towards 13, 14, things like that. Any tier 3 escalations coming out sometime soon?
I think so. I know we have 2 on the books. As in we have 2 that we know what we want to do. We've got the creatures set up, but honestly, I'm not sure off the top of my head when we're going to be putting them in. I know in E8 we've got the first elemental one coming in. And we've got elementals that are like 30 feet tall, so we've got some room to go to some crazy high places with those. So yeah, I would say we should have some in the near future. I would expect at least 1 in the next 1 to 2 releases, but I'd have to double check with Bob to make sure. I mean, it's kind of like we've got Duragar. What else lives underground and is horribly evil? And we'll probably go to, what other humanoid race lives underground and is horribly evil? We're probably going to do that
one. That's fair. I think just from a player standpoint, some of the escalations are getting a little boring at this point.
That's totally fair. I mean, we are if the I guess this is something that I'd actually be curious to hear player feedback on. Is we are constrained by art in the sense that making new creatures is really time consuming. I mean, it's basically just a lot of time and effort to get any new creatures in the game. We could do more escalations with more humanoids, but it'd be dealing with a lot of the same kind of. It'd be like, okay, now it's. I don't know how interesting people would find fighting another group of dudes versus fighting some other group of dudes. So, I mean, it's. I wouldn't necessarily say it's simple for us to add escalations, but it's. Well, I guess in a sense it is simple. It's just time consuming, and we could add more if they looked exactly like all the others. So, I'm not sure that that's going to be very interesting to people.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of knowing got something coming. I mean, if you bring elementals in, let's make them harder and get better loot and those type of things.
Yeah, I mean,
you've got
the elementals coming in. We've got another faction coming in after that. So I mean, we've got at least a few different things coming up. It's just unfortunately the limitations. Cheeto said just make a vampire version of everything. You joke. Oh, we've we've done that. We've been looking at that kind of stuff. I mean, how do you think we got Duragar? We took a dwarf and we painted him gray. So, so I mean that's where we're trying to go to get some some more interesting stuff out. So yeah, I mean we're unfortunately we don't have. There are a lot of things like Cheeto mentioned with making vampires. There are a lot of things that we don't have any control over, like spawning things during the day-night cycle. So I mean, there are a lot of interesting stuff we could conceivably do that we could explain. I can explain in properly in English to you, but doing the technology for is a lot more complicated, unfortunately. So I mean, I would love to get more time into the escalation system right now, but that desire is butting up against getting holdings done and getting the new player stuff set up and. Getting settlements set up. So it's always just sort of a trade-off.
Yep, that's fair. Just trying to find the balance and keep people active. So, some questions in the forums we had about kind of like the EPOW and expendables and how that work and whether or not the effect system's working the way you wanted. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, so EPAL and EPRO is kind of working the way we expected. It's basically one of those situations of we didn't expect. I'm going to say something that I hope people don't take as insulting. We didn't expect the system to be as non-intuitive as it is, because effectively, basically we don't scale up hit points a lot. A starting character has 600 and a max has like 2,000. So basically, because we don't do that, we don't do those hit point scaling like WoW does, for example. Making each successive healing spell feel useful, and making the first one useful was really hard, because if you had, for example, like if you had a first level spell that I think you'll heal like 350 points of damage, that's half a character starting hit points, but it's still like a decent percentage of a max characters. So, it's hard to, we don't have a lot of room to scale things up there. So it's one of the things of, is it working the way we intended? Yes. Is it as fun as we intended? Doesn't seem to be. So we're looking at a number of combat tweaks right now. And actually, it was funny, right as when you said right before we got started, you could hear a bunch of clicks, but you didn't hear me. It's because I was reading an email from Steven with some of his reports about his tests for changes to the combat system. So we are looking at changing some stuff in the combat system to make healing more intuitive, and not necessarily, and not get, basically a healing spell does the same amount of hit points regardless of where you cast it, or who you cast it on, I should say. It's going to necessitate some other changes in the system that aren't necessarily bad things, just a different way of doing things. Until we have more testing on the entirety of the math, I don't necessarily want to say, well, this is what we're doing, but I would look for some combat changes on that front in EE9. There's going to be probably a decent amount of changes to the overall field of combat and healing and the EPO stuff in EE9.
So, and people ask kind of questions, ranged heals, some of those, any of that coming?
Ranged heals aren't currently planned, but I'm not saying they're not. Well, okay. Range heal. So we've been looking at a lot of the stuff with range. And one of the things that's coming in EE8 is we've expanded the melee base range and the forgiveness range a decent amount. I think the melee range doubled and the forgiveness range increased by like 60% or something like that. And we're going to see how that goes. So depending on how things go, we may be looking at doing the healing stuff about that. I mean, we're basically, I mean, the healing at range is, we still want it to be healing. Okay, I should say, I think with some of the changes, we'll be going to more healing proximity, not healing that dude way over there. I think that's kind of what we'll end up with some of the changes, basically.
That's fair. Any other combat UI changes we should expect, or things along those lines?
Well, hang on for 1 second, and I will actually look at the version notes.
How about you just read us the whole version notes? Oh, no, never mind.
Okay, no wide-scale combat changes, but there's a lot of specific feat kind of changes. I'm trying to. Oh, that's not a combat change. That's a feat requirement change. Lesser cure, channel positive energy. Now use cure effects, which heals a percentage of the target's max HP rather than a set amount. So basically, you heal like 20% of somebody's hit points instead of just saying 300. Feud stuff. So I mean that's combat related, but yeah, not a lot of widespread sort of combat changes. We'll see more of that with EE9, I'm thinking.
All right, talk about us. Actually, no. Before we go to that, any rogue love coming up? Wound damage, things like that.
Specific. Oh, the wound system we actually did talk about last week. I wouldn't. Well, honestly, with the schedule change, I'm not sure where it falls now. I'd love to say there's more rogue-specific things right now, but right now we're more focused on the whole. Right now, the main two things to worry about are the holding system and the new player experience. Everything else is kind of getting backburnered. I mean, like I mentioned, there's some combat changes coming in for to make healing better, but yeah, right now there's the wound system is on the schedule, but I'm not sure how many sprints it's going to be until we get to it, given the changes we've already talked about doing today.
That's fair. So talk to us about feuds and how's that going to work? Any thoughts there?
So feuds allow companies to kill each other with no reputation penalty while the feud is active. They require a banking of influence. So if you want to, you basically have to say, well, I'd like to, you say, I wish to feud this other company. I put X amount of influence aside for the duration of the feud. When the feud ends, it takes the duration, say you had a 24-hour feud and you banked 200 influence on it. It would take 24 hours to get your influence back, but you only get 80% of what you banked back. So constantly feuding people will mean you slowly go down in the amount of influence that you have overall. Let's see. You can set variable lengths in the feuds. You have to be feuding someone to take a tower from them. Eventually, you have to be feuding someone to take their holdings from them once we get that system up and running. But we basically wanted to have it where if someone's coming to take stuff from you, they have to give you some type of warning to know, hey, we're coming to take the stuff from you, so you can arrange some defenders. Generally, feuds have to start up an hour after, at least an hour after they're declared. So you can't go to somebody's hex and be like, okay, we're going to feud you, and then take this tower right here that's next to us in 5 minutes. So it'd be like, hey, you get at least an hour's warning that people are going to come, come and try and take your stuff. That's really the core of the system. You can have multiple feuds going if you can afford it. Multiple people can feud you. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else important. Is there any specifics people have questions about that I could go into?
So there was actually two things. One, just quickly, if I caught that. So starting in E8, you'll need to declare a feud to take a tower?
Yes, you will need to declare a feud to take a tower.
All right. And then there's some discussion in one of the other chats, I'm not sure which one, about using influence to push off a feud.
We originally planned on doing that. We had a bunch of discussions about how that interacts with PvP window, such as basically saying, because basically if I declare my feud and it starts an hour before your PvP window and you're able to push it off 2 hours relatively easily, so it's on the other side of your PvP window, you've kind of you may have just invalidated the whole reason I had for my feud. So right now we don't have that system in. We basically have to do some more work to figure out how that would interact with PvP windows and stuff like that. I think there's any, other cases and stuff like that. So it's a system that I like the idea of, but we didn't have enough specifics ironed out to really start to spend the resources of implementation on it.
So if I declare a feud in E8, once I declare a feud, I can like take anything I want. It's not just like feuding on like one hex or things like that.
Right. You can take anything from the stuff controlled by that company. Well, right now, theoretically, one company can control a lot of towers, and I realize it gives you a lot of terrain to cover. Eventually, since each company, when we get to doing holdings, each company is only going to be able to control however many hexes it actually has the influence to control. It should narrow things down geographically from right now I realize I can control one tower way the hell over there, another tower way the hell over there, and then 3 towers by my settlement. Someone feuds me, I have no idea where they're going to hit me. In the future, you only have to worry about defending the holdings you actually claim, which hopefully should be a little more geographically centered, and that should be something people take into account when they're laying out their holdings. If you say, hey, we're going to set up this holding because we want this, we're in the mountains, we need a lot of food, we're going to put this one holding way the hell out in the plains so it makes food for us. Well, yeah, you're going to have a hard time defending that one. And so, that is part of the intention of the eventual system. Right now, I realize towers are placed by us. They're not convenient. It'll be a weird case just until we get the ability to capture holdings in.
All right, and now once a feud is declared in the current like E8 world, that's rep-free PvP?
Yeah, between those two companies, all the time, no matter where you are.
Between the companies, not the settlements.
Right, between the companies. We want to get to having settlement wars between settlements, so all the companies in a settlement can kill all the other companies in another settlement. But if one company in a settlement declares a feud on another company in a settlement, there's nothing to stop the other companies involved from declaring feuds back and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so that's kind of a cool little change. And like, give us an idea. What does it cost to buy an hour of feud time?
That is a crazy complicated equation. Hang on a second. Okay, so first off, we base every company is going to effectively have a power rating, which we basically take the total spent XP of the company, of everyone in the company, and divide it by the number of people in the company, and then we use some other math to actually pretty accurately estimate what level you would be if you chose one class. So basically we can figure out the average level of a company using this. So we use that along with some other equations. It would depend, and okay, so I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this because there's a lot of math involved. In the end result, to be able to basically search a company and be able to say, okay, how much is this feud going to cost me? But it's okay. Well, yeah. I'll find out, and I will. I want to say the short feuds are like a few hundred, like a hundred. Well, it's one of those things, like there's so many variables involved. It's kind of hard to figure it out because there's your company's power compared to the defender's power. Influence is also involved. So companies that are companies that have low influence, both in terms of max and current, are harder to feud than companies that have really high influence. So it's harder to pick on small companies than it is to pick on large companies. It is harder to pick on lower level companies than it is to pick on higher level companies. I say pick on feud. Pick on's a pejorative term. I shouldn't use that. So basically, the cost of the feud goes up. The smaller the company it is, the less influence it has, the lower level it is. The bigger it is, the more influence it has, the easier it is to feud. The power, basically the attacker's power and the defender's power are compared. Plus there's a lot of variables here. And I'd have to do a bunch of spreadsheet math to get a good answer. So unfortunately, I don't have that ready with me right now. I'll post something in the next later this week when I actually have time to spreadsheet it all out.
Great. And you were saying short feud. And Filet made a great comment. Is it an hour, or is that like a day, or is that a week?
The feud times we're starting with are 4 hours, 8 hours, 12, 24, and 5 days.
Great. So while we're talking about influence and spending it, there's a question about upgrading holdings. Is that going to require more resources or just influence? Like if I have right now a 0+3 holding.
The initial pass, it's just going to take influence. I'm going to see how that plays. We may end up adding a bulk resource cost to it in time. So I wouldn't necessarily get too comfy, but right now I'm going to see how the influence alone thing comes along.
All right, and now if I have, I'm just going to kind of run some holding outpost questions. So if I've got a holding that's plus 0 essentially, and I have all my outposts at +3, that's fine and kosher?
Yes, they do not limit each other, but you can only upgrade upgrade the holding as much as you +0 can't really upgrade it. But we do actually have tech coming in for EE8, where if you have a kit of a higher plus, you can upgrade to the higher plus without basically if it's in your inventory when you go to the UI for when you go to the UI to upgrade your holding, and if you have a higher plus kit in your inventory, you can choose to upgrade to that kit without having to tear it down and build it back up and go through that whole rigmarole.
But you lose the old holding.
Yeah, you don't get the old holding or kit. You don't get the kit previously used back, but it saves you the effort of tearing something down if you get a better version.
But materials, they're lost. There's no kind of savings to upgrade.
Well, the materials used in building the kit, anything that's actually in the holding, like storage-wise, is saved.
Oh, okay, that's great. And when's sorry, that's like E9 for the upgrades?
E8.
Oh, so in E8 we'll be able to upgrade our production and all that?
Yep.
Great. All right. Yeah, that's a good question. Fans, just a little different direction. Factions. When are they coming? What's coming? Sometime soon? What's going on?
Well, it's something we've been talking more about lately because one of the things we've been trying to do is bring more Galarian stuff into game. The problem with we may get the first faction group in before settlements. Otherwise, it'll come in shortly after settlements. It's one of those things like it's either going to be the last thing we do before settlements, or the first thing we do after settlements. Because settlements are basically going to eat our brains for some period of time. And the first group we'll probably do is the Pathfinder Society and the Aspis Consortium, because all of our factions are involved in basically come in groups that have conflict among them. So we're going to be introducing them in pairs or groups of 3 or more or something like that. And the Pathfinder Society and Asmus Consortium are kind of the ones we want to start with because A, Pathfinder Society, incredibly iconic to the setting, obviously. B, they don't have uniforms. We'd love to do the Hell Knights, but the Hell Knight uniforms are very art intensive. So we're kind of pushing them off a bit until we have more time and resources, because we don't want to have the Hell Knights come up and be like, yeah, we're wearing the same armor as everybody else, because then they're not really Hell Knights. So we've got the group I mentioned, the Pathfinder Society Asmus Consortium. That's sort of like the first one we'll do. The next one we want to do is the Hell Knight, Crusader Knight, Thorns group. Thorns are basically sort of like the bandit, River Kingdoms natives group that are like, hey, get the hell out of our country, or our anarchist commune, whatever you want to call it. But that group just requires more art and resources and stuff like that. So we've definitely been talking about doing more with them lately. We've also talked about some interesting ideas like players being able to determine what order factions become available in, like basically saying, hey, there's a bunch of factions. They want to build a headquarters here. Whichever faction gets the most resources gets in game first, and stuff like that, or some things like a server-wide faction score that the more holdings you're like, it would basically introduce some faction-specific holdings, so you can build like a Hell Knight scouting outpost. The more of those in the world, the higher the rating is for that faction, the more neat stuff they can do. So I mean, we've talked about a lot of different things for the factions. I think would be really cool. It's just finding where they fall in the schedule versus the settlement stuff. I mean, they are, I would say, like from a strictly design perspective, the priorities we've got at this point are pretty much the holdings and new player experience are pretty much around tied for first place. Then probably settlements, and then probably faction. But the thing is if the faction stuff ends up, if we're able to find a way to do it so it's a very low hanging fruit, we may get it done before settlements. But that sort of remains to be seen.
And I get the feeling settlements is like EE12 type.
We're definitely going to be starting it before then. Let's see. 8, 9. We'll be starting it probably 11, 12-ish, somewhere in there, and it'll take a few sprints to get it done. But yeah, that's about when we're shooting to get it done. Yeah.
I guess a couple more quick questions. We'll try to run through things. How about bringing in bags of holding we all have?
Well, that's another thing I talked about right before here. That's actually right now we do not have the capacity to do a item that is a straight attribute bonus. So we can't have the bag of holding, when you put it in your wonders item slot, give you plus whatever encumbrance. That may get fixed soon. I certainly hope so, because it does open up a world of other items we can then make. Cloaks of resistance, rings of protection, all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, it does require some work. But it is one of the things we're talking about today as a way to help the whole encumbered situation, is to get that tech working.
Well, I think there's a few different things there. A few different ideas. It'd be great to see kind of what we started with, helping us out there. How about just a couple other kind of fun ones? Escalations or respawning every server up rather than 12 to 36 hour wait?
I think we have a fix for that. I would have to double check with Bob to make sure, but I think we have a fix for that. Hang on one second. Let me check the bug database. All right. Bob just came in and shook his head sadly that we do not actually have a fix on it yet. So unfortunately, we do not have that fixed. But we have a bug, and it is currently in the system at our highest priority. So hopefully we'll get it. So we won't have it for E8, but we should have it hopefully for E9.
All right. How about the polling on the main screen? We had talked about that for races and other things you were thinking about.
Let's see. That may be done in EE9. I know it's not in EE8, but again, if we're changing schedules, it probably won't be done in EE9, but there's a chance it will be. Yeah, unfortunately, unfortunately I don't know. I would like to get it done sooner rather than later, just so we can get the artists working on the right new classes. But just resource-wise, we're very constrained on the tech side of things, so it's just hard to get that stuff in the schedule when we've got holdings to finish and all that kind of stuff.
All right. Here's another fun one. How about what's your thoughts about kind of reviews of PFO already occurring because it's live and it's paid, and any concerns there?
Personally, not really. I mean, sure, do I wish all the reviews were awesome and everybody loved everything about the game and they said, give these people all your money? I would love that. But I have learned through hard experience to not read reviews. I read player feedback and feedback from ex-players. But every game I've been involved with has had people who loved it and people who hated it, and I don't know. I don't find reading reviews to be that productive a use of my time. So I don't know. It bugs me a little bit in the sense of okay, the sort of thing like I see the point. People are paying money, so they're expecting the reviewers saying, well, if you're asking for money, then we should be able to do this. Okay, I kind of see the point there, but at the same time, we've always said it's not done. So at the same time, I don't think it's completely fair, and also I don't understand to some extent the militancy of some people who seem to be offended on a religious level that we're taking money for the game at this point. I mean, I understand somebody doesn't want to pay for the game because it's not complete. Okay, fair enough. Don't. That's fine. I have no problem. That is your decision as a consumer. Actively telling people we're horrible people or you're stupid or anything like that for for doing it just seems I don't know. I don't get that. But again, I'm a person who tries really not to be negative in my life and not crap on work that other people do. So, that's just, I guess I just maybe don't get that mindset anyway. Another reason I don't like reviews just because I generally don't like I don't read bad reviews. Anytime I see a review that says a game is bad, I don't read it. Just because I don't really, I don't need to know that. Hopefully that answered your question.
That's fair. So we're running out on time in our formal part, but give us something cool that's coming out, E8, E9, maybe something that we might have thought of or whatever it may be.
Hang on. Let me look through the version notes. Well, we started doing some more stuff with the backer taverns. I mean, right now it's just some remodeling on the inside, but that'll hopefully pay off in a little bit. Okay, so we have new dresses. We now have a dress version of the peasant's clothes and merchant clothes outfits, which can be worn by men. So if you want to wear a dress, rock on. You totally can. What else have we gotten here? Hey, the volume controls now work. Oh, that's awesome.
That's cool. And does it remember from login to login?
It should. Oh, whispers and replies now appear in all chat tabs. So hopefully that helps.
How about settlement or company chat? That really would help new player retention.
That is definitely something I want to get. I don't think we have anything on that. I know we have that on the schedule. I will actually follow up with that because that is something that would be super useful to have right now. Well, just in general. Because, yeah, enabling people to better communicate with everybody would be super useful.
Yeah, I think settlement chat would probably be the first priority, then company chat. But either way, that would make it a whole lot better.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think the big thing for this next, actually, I guess the big wow factor for this next for EE8 is probably going to be the elementals, because we've got earth elementals, we have magma elementals, we have sand elementals, we have ice elementals, and they range from character size up to freaking huge. Actually, technically huge. I believe they technically fall into the size category known as huge in the tabletop Pathfinder game. So, yeah, it's that I think is going to be the big visual thing. They have a bunch of new attacks. They can hit pretty hard. There'll be a bit of a different, feel combat wise. So, that I think is going to be the big visual wow for EE8. I will say, generally speaking, our releases have been on this kind of schedule of awesome, big, huge release, smaller release, awesome, big, huge release, smaller release. Because a lot of times when we do a big release, we have to do a lot of cleanup afterwards, and it eats up the time on the next release. And EE8 is going to be like a smaller one. So as you know, we're kind of like on the recovery release, and then we're ramping back up to another big release on 9 most likely.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We're going to end the formal Keepside chat here. Lee, if you have some time to stick around and answer some other questions, that'd be great. But if not, I understand.
I've got a little time. So what?
So we'll open the channel to anyone who has questions. We'll try to share the space appropriately.
Got a quick question. You're talking about the new player experience. Did you guys ever think about putting some of the quest givers in the inns themselves?
Oh, we've actually. So this is actually. Well, I don't know if it's a big change. We've actually on E8. We are going to be moving the new player experience to Thornkeep. It's not going to be in Thornkeep. It's in the hexes around Thornkeep. So as we all know, Thornkeep is sort of like at the middle of the junction of 3 hexes. So on the outer edge of those same hexes, the ones away from Thornkeep, there's now these little lumber camps where characters show up for the new player tutorial. So they don't have to navigate through this whole town, to figure out what's going on. They just have this one little area. It's a lot easier to navigate and figure out their way through. So we're trying to move the new player experience to a less confusing environment. Just because right now it's you show up in the middle of town, you've got to navigate all this stuff, and hopefully this will help simplify things a little bit. But by taverns, do you mean like the normal taverns in the town, or like the special backer taverns?
Both.
The backer taverns could actually work because those are actually in NPC hexes. I mean I don't know. I right now, because of the limits of the quest system, I'm very well. Because we don't have waypoints and a few other things, I'm very reticent to do a lot of. It's one of the reasons we don't have a lot of quests. Is there's just not a good way to tell someone, hey, go over there. I mean, the monster killings, specific monster killing ones, are in game. They say, well, it's the place you need to go is 2 hexes south of this, which is a horrible way to give directions. So we have a lot fewer quests in the game than we would otherwise, because we just don't have a good way to. They're just not not good enough right now. Going forward, I would love to put more. I would love to put quests in general in the taverns, because in tabletop games, that's where you go to get quests. Right now we're just trying to sort of move the new player experience generally to a smaller, less confusing, less overwhelming area in general, so there's not so much stuff going on. And I worry that the taverns in town wouldn't help with that. The backer taverns, I would just. They may work. They're in NPC hexes, but I worry about doing that with somebody's property effectively. I wouldn't want to do that without the backer's permission first.
I have a quick question about the foreman bonus.
Can I get a quick follow-up on the new player thing real quick before you go into something else?
Sure, I guess.
Just these new lumber mills that you're putting out in the wilderness, you're putting Thornguard there too, right?
Yeah, we're actually putting thorn guards at the lumber mills and along the roads in all the NPC hexes around Thornkeep.
Thank you. That was it.
And did you remove the NPC hexes around Thornkeep in the mountains?
Yes, we most of the hexes that are more than one hex away from Thornkeep are becoming wilderness or Badlands or monster hexes. Most of them are coming wilderness. There's a few monster hexes that are only going to be limited to running low-level escalations. So new players can go, basically they'll be running like mini escalations all the time. So new players can get what it's like to fight an escalation in a relatively safe environment.
I think the question is the one that's also the waterfall that's technically 1 hex away, but it's up in the mountains.
Yeah, those aren't NPC hexes anymore.
Okay.
So yeah, the foreman bonus. I was just wondering if you could post it up anywhere before EE8 comes out.
Well, the foreman stuff actually isn't going to be in for EE8. The worker foreman,
okay.
The worker foreman stuff is didn't get in yet. Right now, the foreman basically Okay, I'll admit this is a boring bonus, but it's what we've got right now. I'd like to do something meatier later on. The foreman bonus right now, basically their appropriate skills count twice as much. So they're like a whole extra worker basically in that facility. I'd like to give them something a little meatier to do, but it's kind of what we've got right now.
That's not really. I mean, that sounds pretty awesome, actually. So.
Well, if players think it awesome and like it, I'm totally fine with keeping it. It's just the game designer in me just is like, oh man, that's so simple. But simple's good because simple gets implemented. So
is that based off a coefficient of their seneschal skill combined with their gathering skill that's appropriate for the building, or is it just straight gathering skill at that point?
It's just straight gathering skill because you only have foremen in buildings that don't have upkeep. So the seneschal skill is not relevant. The seneschal is important to the holding, not the outpost.
Okay.
Yeah, simple is good.
How about other questions?
There's one in the chat field. What's that big field outside Thornkeep for? Soccer. Actually, the big fields around Thornkeep is basically for expansion. So when we add more classes to the game, we have places to put their training facilities. Lead map shows Forge Home is still surrounded by all mountains. It's actually 5 mountains and 1 forest. I think that got fixed for E8, but I will double check. I know on the technical end, we're counting it as 5 mountains and a forest, but I don't know if on the map it actually shows it. Assassinations are awesome.
How about the freeholder and expert levels? Are those going to be in game?
Okay. So we can't do those yet until I get the OR functionality for achievements, because right now freeholders and experts don't have achievements like fighters do or wizards do or whatever. This is because I need the OR statement for it to basically be able to say, you need level X in any crafting skill, or you need level Y in any gathering skill or any profession skill. Until I can say that, there's really no point in doing the achievements, because those classes are defined. I can fake the fighter achievements are supposed to have an OR statement that requires special weapon specialization, but between attack bonuses and between hit points and base attack bonus and other stuff, I can kind of fake it with fighters and wizards and clerics and rogues. I can't fake it in the same way without OR statements for experts and freeholders right now. So, which obviously we need to get fixed. And I'm sure people who've been paying attention for a long time have heard me say I don't have the OR statements for achievements many times. But I really need the OR statements for achievements before I can get the level to show up on the character sheet. Stonemason making in. Stonemason will come in when settlements come in. It is the skill used to build some of the buildings in the settlements. So until we have the buildings you can build in settlements, it's not going to do anything. So it should be a few sprints, and then it'll start showing up. We may introduce it a little early or something, so people can start training it a little beforehand, but we'll have to see how it goes.
Are you guys going to make that into a full class like you've done with Seneschal, or is that going to be not a full class in and of itself?
You mean Stonemason?
Yeah.
By
full class, I mean take a shitload of experience points on the same level that like Armorsmith and Weaponsmith do.
I don't think it's going to. I'd have to double check my math. But honestly, right now, I'm not sure, but I don't think so. I don't. I think it will certainly require a decent amount of XP, but I don't think it will be quite as high as the crafting skills.
There was a question in general chat and also in here about when will terrain actually provide cover.
I wish I knew. Unfortunately, we do not have the line of sight checks in right now, which unfortunately limit a great many things in combat. I hope we have some polish sprints planned. So we're hoping that I hope we can hit that during upcoming polish sprints, depending on complexity. Because the combat is a little weird where you can shoot through. The point, like we don't if you've noticed, we don't have walls in the game. Just because we don't have line of sight checks. Just because NPCs will shoot you through the wall, and that's just not so good. So obviously it's something we want to get in, but we just have to find time basically the polish sprint to get that done.
I got a quick question.
Go ahead.
When will we be able to change the keys for UI?
That I have no idea. That has not come up before that I remember. So I don't know.
There's a tool for that. Hold on, I'll give you a link.
All right.
In the same vein, is there any plans on giving us better control over graphical settings so I can do like shadow pop-in ranges without killing my graphical settings? Basically more control over graphical settings.
Sorry, that's the right link.
Good job, Tink.
Did I kill it?
Way to go, and for their reputation as killing everything.
Actually, we lost both people, Lisa and Lee, so
I'm sorry.
Guess is he broke their internet.
I killed it all. It's the stabber person in me. I just can't help it.
I think that one of those North Korean missiles just hit Seattle.
All right. Any other chat while we're hanging out?
Well, that foreman bonus is going to help pretty much everybody in the whole world.
Yep.
I missed it. What was it?
It's double what the actual person is, which means that if you basically means that you only need 2 or 3 people at this point if you have a decent foreman to man a holding, or rather an outpost.
And foreman is Seneschal?
No, foreman is straight gathering skill associated with the holding.
Okay.
Associated with the outpost.
Got it.
Well,
so you simply declare someone to be a foreman?
They fill that slot, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to, I believe the way it works is they have to go to the outpost and sign up for it.
And be part of the company that controls the hex.
In the first iteration. Second iteration, anybody can be a foreman or a worker for any other people's outposts.
Not sure how I feel about that, because then I can just walk up with my 1k EXP alt to someone's holding and be like, I'm the foreman now, LOL.
No, they have to approve it, obviously.
Okay, as long as there's, some forethought in that.
But that's really cool. it's gonna be really cool because you could be like, hey, we have a company that does nothing but foreman and
as long as there's
work
some
and stuff.
way to control it, that's a great idea. But I've seen game developers put shit like that in games and then not think about things like that, and then you just get griefing until there's a patch.
So I actually want to ask a question to the group. What do you guys think about this turning up the tower, the base level for towers and all that?
I'm of two minds of it. On one hand, I would like for it to be more conflict over towers. On the other hand, I'm not sure we have the population to support large amounts of conflict over the towers.
We have enough people in this game to support like maybe 1 or 2 battles a day for towers. That's about it.
Yeah, depending on this. Like, I don't know if anyone here remembers the first couple weeks of War of the Towers where you were going through a set of gear a night. And that went on for about a week, and that was rough.
Oh, that's why TEO gave up on it the first day. We did not fight over another tower for like a month? Because that first night was rough.
I think the point is, if towers aren't going to go away for at least 6 weeks, which is the minimum, then up in that base level to me just makes sense by 1.
Agreed.
Like, we're at a point right now where there's almost actual scarcity for once. I don't know.
Well, it depends. It totally depends on the settlement, though.
This is all a stopgap for another, just a couple weeks anyways, so.
Yeah.
Well, no, hold on. That's 6 weeks minimum. Could be 9 or more, depending on the sprints.
Except they're not going to implement it right away, so it'd probably be, actually implemented and work for, 3 weeks. But
they could do it in 9 or 10 just for. I mean,
they could do it in 8. That's an Excel sheet change.
Yeah, I mean, all the only thing you really have to do is they just need the tech to say, okay, your settlement bank pays for your training.
No, they don't even have to do that. The settlement upkeep for levels is not until at least EE 9 or 10. That's the question of, do we want to wait 6 to 9 weeks for that, or take the base level up by 1?
Oh no, fair enough. But I was just talking about when they're removed. I mean, it's not right now. It's not that huge of a deal because I mean every single one of us, every single settlement has resources at the moment, and the costs are so low that it just.
Well, ignoring the 2 big powers, if we were to take all the other settlements, I would guess that they would probably want to see it go up just because they're not interested in fighting for towers.
Are you guys really excited about fighting for towers?
No.
Yes.
Well, actually, now that they fixed red flags, a little bit more.
Yeah, now that you can't just run around in big fucking circles and win because no one can target anyone, it's actually a lot more fun.
Yes. And no Mistwalker, it hasn't.
And see, the thing is what I don't like about towers is that you're fighting in a little box. And although I understand why people don't like banditry, and I'm over 50 days banditry free, I haven't even been doing interdiction. But the fun thing about that is you're running all over the countryside doing stuff where towers is just a little box. You're just fighting in a little box, and it's so boring.
But with EE8, which is only 2 weeks, then feuds come in. You could just run into somebody's town and start beating.
We'll see.
They never answered my question about if the Thorn Guard would interfere with a feud. So maybe not. At that point, you can get to I can live against Thorn Guard for long enough to kill somebody, but I wouldn't want to do it because they would die, but then I would also shortly afterwards die.
Well, I'd say the biggest thing is probably going to be just the influence. If they're saying it's going to cost you 200 influence to feud someone for 8 hours or whatever, you're heck, the Bloody Hand has 2,000 influence. It's a 100-man company, and those, some of the most active people. That means we're going to be able to feud people, at most once a week, and that's if we've got 20 people out actively gathering influence.
No, so you gain it back.
They said that you don't gain it all back. That you lose a percentage or whatnot.
I think the other weird thing was this math about calculating average level or whatever that is. That means that EOX and TEO might go to battle, it's going to be pretty cheap. But if you're going after one of the smaller groups, it's going to be much harder.
It's easily gotten around.
I'm sure.
Hey, look, I've got a one-man company. It's going to be near impossible to spend enough, influence to kill me. Yeah, there'll be dumb shit like that until they find a good way to actually run it.
Or just like 5-man kill team, go feud somebody with your 5-man kill team. Congratulations. Like, it's an easy feud. They'll fix it and tweak it, and it'll work eventually. But
well, I don't think you could actually feud with a less than 6-man company because I think you'll still need influence, and you need a company minimum of 6 to make a feud.
It depends on math.
But yeah, people will work around it, and eventually they'll figure it out.
And we'll have alts.
Yeah, I think his point was a company with 6 people is required to start gaining influence. 5 people in a company.
Okay, well then 6-man kill team.
Yeah.
Still a full party, perfect size.
Like, it's
funny.
Well, and honestly, 6 men is plenty enough to take a tower a day at least.
Well, the concept with feuding is you don't have to west with the towers, or does that actually let you take a tower outside their PvP window?
No, still in the PvP window.
Oh, then you don't need a feud at all to take towers.
No, you need a feud in order to be able to take towers now.
You were a little late.
Yeah, you missed that bit.
By the way, the other key part of this was small settlements are now viable. Cheeto math does not work.
They are only viable for very super specialized things. They are still not viable for all the roles and everything unless you're part of a bigger alliance.
Well, actually, though, when he's talking about taking away that your skills don't disappear, I mean, you could train somewhere and then go join a small settlement and still be viable.
I am not sure that's exactly what he said.
You'd have to be part of an alliance still.
Yeah,
so you'd have
the
to
alliance gives you support.
And you have to spend influence to be part of an alliance.
DI.
Exactly.
So they said influence.
So
No,
my
I missed
math is still not that wrong. My math is pretty on par. And as a matter of fact, I'm the one that suggested that change in the first place. So
I think the only settlement that really benefits out of this is Hope's End, because they're the only small settlement that wanted to specialize in just one thing.
Yeah. So you're still going to have to be part of an alliance to get the support that you need for your group. And
which is a good thing.
It is a good thing, yeah. But it also means that a couple of small settlements can each specialize in something and be part of an alliance together, and then cover a lot.
He also did say with that specialization, you could get to level 20. So, I mean, if you want to specialize in 2 things, you can probably get to level 14 or 15.
Yeah.
Which is still pretty fucking good.
Well, it's good enough for now.
I'll be very happy to be in Tier 3.
It's good enough to put you in Tier 3.
But then, that comes around with how are they going to design the kingdoms and what are they going to be for?
Yeah. It's like everything else with PFO. We don't know enough yet about anything to do anything.
Did they say anything that would suggest that we're going to get more players?
Yeah, if more people play the game, we'll get more players. I mean, they can't pick and choose that.
Well, they did talk about the new player experience being a priority, which retaining is the bigger issue. I mean, I can tell you my back on napkin math, I've put out about 100 buddy invites, and only 3 have converted.
Yeah. Yeah, Reddit's been stupid.
That sounds about exactly what my math would be for handing out stuff and conversions.
Do you expect anything less out of Reddit?
They're gross. But they have money.
If I see test company, please ignore, I'm going ballistic.
Dude, they already exist.
The question that I had for him actually was something about tomorrow. I hope they get the test server up and running tomorrow.
Tig, search test on the game.
Don't make me have a bad night.
Okay, don't search it. Never search it.
And I heard a rumor that they are they're going to be asking certain groups within Paizo to come join the game.
Lovely, more role players.
That enthusiasm.
The rumor that I heard was the venture captains and venture lieutenants to get them to come in and play the game so they could talk about it to people who come to Pathfinder Society games so they can answer questions honestly and say, well, this is what I've seen and here's what's going on in the game type thing.
You know what they ought to do? They ought to have a graduated subscription where your first month's $1, your second month's $2 until you get them up to 15. Because if they play for a year, they'll stick around.
That's an economic question, though. If that would result in more subscriptions, I'm sure they've done the math, and they probably get more money the way they're doing it now.
Yep. What they need to do is they need to give more options for paying, because we have a few people that are waiting to play the game over in Covenant of the Phoenix, but there's not enough options in terms of PayPal not being there, as well as some European options for credit cards. I mean, they've got a bunch of people waiting to play the game. They just need to get those payment options in.
To be fair, those EU people can get in. They just have to go to the store and buy a temporary visa.
No, fair enough.
Well, I mean, we have a bunch of EU players. Like, they can get in.
Yeah, I think I was impressed by the 15% reduction. I mean, if that's it, that's pretty impressive.
You mean the 15% reduction in leaving the game?
Yeah, if it only was 15,
That's because there's a bunch of people that are just like sitting here not actually playing the game, that are paying for the game.
Sucking in that EXP.
Yep.
But frankly, that helps the game. I mean,
it does, yeah.
It
doesn't hurt.
It helps them financially. It doesn't help the game. The game needs more players. It doesn't need more people with subs.
It needs both.
Yeah.
When you talk about the Pathfinder Society and trying to get the table toppers in here, that's not going to work either, because the Excelsior Guild, the entire purpose of it was for the West Michigan Pathfinder Society, and a lot of people in the Pathfinder Society there backed this game, and only one, myself, is in this game at this point. I mean,
why would we be playing? The game has nothing for those kind of players. The game is a PvP game right now, and there's some grindy PvE, but if I wanted to PvE, I would go play World of Warcraft. If I wanted to roleplay, I'd go play, I don't know, Lord of the Rings Online or something.
Yeah, that's the same thing. My venture captain of my PFS Society has not joined because there's not enough. Exactly.
Right, but I think that's where players can make some content to work along that.
Well, we can make content, but there's not enough content that we can make that makes it worth $15, really. Other than like roleplay type stuff, but you can do that without the $15. You could do that on Roll20.
Well, I think once the squabbling over resources happens, that's when the PvP is going to kick off and people are going to join in.
It's not going to be Pathfinder Society people.
Yeah, PFS people won't be doing that, because in general, I know that there's exceptions. Those are not the kind of players who are interested in open world PvP.
Well, I think if this plays more like a Kingmaker, it might, though.
Kingmaker and open world PvP are two very different things. On one hand, there's a GM, and on the other hand, there's another person beating you down.
The only way they could make this more like Kingmaker to rein in the PvP more.
Yeah,
which is going to be which could eventually just kill the game off.
Short-term game, long-term loss.
The reason that PvP is different is because in PvP there always has to be a loser. There has to be a loser in PvP because someone has to win, and that isn't what Kingmaker was about, and that isn't what tabletop is generally about. In tabletop, generally the table wins, or they encounter a small setback, but they don't outright lose.
It's most very of the time, you have to hold the party wipe.
In modern day D&D, there are relatively few table wipes.
I mean, unless you keep poking that black dragon in the nose over and over again, then you're just kind of asking for it.
No,
that's never going to happen.
That is bad for the game. You cannot segregate it, because all that does is creates a two people system where the PvEers do their thing, the PvPers do their thing, and there's never any interaction between the two of them. That also doesn't work, because what actually ends up happening is the PvEers never go for the more risk, ever.
When they did that in Ultima Online, the PvP shards became ghost towns, and the non-PvP shards is where most people moved.
And then eventually the game died.
Eve makes it work, but even in Eve, when you're in high sec, you can get killed. Like, you're not safe.
Yeah.
You're safer, but...
even not safer. If someone wants to kill you in high sec, you die.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a freighter a day lost in high sec, at least a freighter a day.
I would actually say that high sec
attack
is...
on Jita. I mean,
yeah,
in
the majority of the game world right now, you are safer in the game than you are in high sec Eve. I've been killed more times in Eve in high sec than I have in this game, easily for time played.
Yeah, definitely.